I just wanna have peace. Pay for the bill, let them take my car, never see the receipt. Good health, we prize, but everybody around prosperity.
What's up, guys, and welcome to the LivBtr podcast. This is your host, Jay Siano, and this is the show for people trying to optimize every area of their life. Let's go.
I just wanna have peace.
All right, what's up, guys? So welcome to another LivBtr episode, and I could not be more excited for today's guest. So I have the one and only Anne Mahlum, very close friend of mine, which makes this podcast episode even more special. But Anne has way too many accomplishments for me to run off quickly on an intro, but she is the founder of Solidcore. Even before that, she founded Back on My Feet, a national nonprofit, which speaks volumes about Anne's character. She transitioned to the for-profit space. We actually scaled Solidcore to 100 locations a few months back, and she exited for a very large number. And we're working on some new projects together, Ambition. She has her own How To with Anne Mahlum podcast, and she's working on a masterclass as well, which we'll talk about. But guys, you're going to get lots of amazing nuggets from one of the most successful fitness entrepreneurs of our time. Hope you enjoy the episode. All right, guys. So today I have an amazing guest, a dear friend of mine. I cannot wait to have this conversation. The one, the only, Anne Mahlum. Anne, welcome to the LivBtr podcast.
So nice to get on a podcast where I don't have to tell someone how to pronounce my last name.
You know what? I mean, by the way, there's so many things we could talk about that it actually makes it more challenging because we know each other so well.
I know. Well, let's talk about some controversial stuff. That's always fun.
That is fun. All right. Well, we're starting season 2. We're changing the direction of the podcast a little. And you've been such an inspiration to me about my personal growth journey, which is obviously a very important topic to both of us. But I wanted to dive in with some old Anne versus new Anne. And I'm going to throw a couple of topics because I think it's interesting for you to talk about how your perspective has evolved and changed as you continue to evolve and change. So old Anne's perspective on fitness and health.
Old Anne's perspective on fitness and health was all about vanity and how, all I cared about was working out. Is this going to give me the body that I want, this sort of ideal body shape? My whole identity was wrapped up in how I looked more so than how my body was performing and functioning. And I think that's probably a little normal, right? The older we get, we realize we're super thankful for our body's ability to be able to do the things that we enjoy. For me, that's being as active as possible, being able to sprint on a treadmill, lift heavy weights, and of course, play volleyball, play basketball with my nieces and nephews, and just overall not think about how my body feels on a day-to-day basis because it's always feeling great, right? And so that's probably the biggest difference.
New Anne, so that's basically your new perspective on fitness and health.
And don't get me wrong, I still want to look good, right? But when I'm deciding what to do to work out or when I'm working out, it has a bigger vision for me. I think about longevity. I think about life in my 60s and 70s and what I can be doing now to continue to have the quality of life that I want to have.
Old Anne's perspective on alcohol.
I was good at the justification equation for 2 decades, maybe close to 2 decades. And what I mean by that, and I'm sure a lot of people can relate to any of our vices that we have, right? Everybody says everybody needs a vice. Oh my God, I kill it in these other areas. I'm so much healthier than 95, 99% of the population. I exercise every day. I eat well. I don't eat sugar. I, don't drink soda, maybe a Diet Coke or a Coke Zero on a special occasion. But everything else, I'm killing it. So what's the big deal if I have a drink or two, most evenings? Jay, you and I have riffed on our relationship with alcohol a lot, and you and I are different drinkers, and same with my boyfriend, who's a different drinker. He's more, if we're going to drink and go for it. And I'm like, no, that's not my game. Mine is, I'm just going to have 1 to 2 on a daily basis. And you start to think about, shit, that's, 60 drinks a month potentially. And that's like, I would never have 60 pieces of cake, or, you know what I mean? Anything else that I sort of consider a vice or that I would allow myself. And so I last year really took a break, a 30-day break, like everybody else. 30 days is not enough. You might convince yourself you don't have an issue in 30 days because you didn't need to drink in 30 days, but you easily go right back into old habits. So I gave myself 90 days of not drinking alcohol, and really did the research, Jay, on like how everybody's been bamboozled with this drug, and that it needs to be a part of our everyday lives to be and like our lives are better enhanced. We're more successful. We're more attractive. We're more sophisticated. I mean, the marketing industry has some of the best marketers I've ever seen. So the old Anne would justify that habit and not look for the real information on how bad alcohol is for you. And the Anne today realizes that alcohol does not have the place in my life that it used to. I'm not 100% sober, but I might have a couple drinks over the course of 2 weeks versus a couple drinks, every single day. It's a mindful decision. It's a conscious decision. And it's not just something I do haphazardly and justify my behavior. I know it's not good for me. And when I'm having a drink, I'm saying, okay, is this something I really want to do? And there better be a really valid reason for it if I'm gonna do it.
I mean, when you just said that a few drinks a day like could add up to like 60 drinks a month, that's actually a much larger number than I would have calculated quickly in my head. That's a lot of alcohol. One might not feel that way when you're actually doing it, but when you think about it from the perspective of 60 drinks is a lot of alcohol.
Totally. And Jay, you and I talk about how slow success is, right? The slow build of every day. You can be doing that on the opposite too, for the detrimental things. And you think in the moment, right? It's 1 or 2 drinks. We isolate it to a day, but just like everything else, compounding interest comes into play. And over time, when your liver, when your organs, when your muscle tissue, I mean, again, either thing, this slow demise of something and the slow build of something, everything adds up one way or the other.
Yeah. I mean, and you're right. We drink differently, where you never would like binge drink and be out of commission for a day or two.
No.
I can't say the same, but this isn't about me. This is about you.
Well, but for everybody listening, I want to remind you, most people I think are like me, and you think you don't have an issue because you're not shitting the bed and missing work and, relationships and missing appointments or whatever, and you're able to handle it. I'm not saying you have a problem, but looking at it and saying, how is this going to benefit me down the road? What issues am I going to have, from doing this thing? And I think the risk reward, right? Peter Attia talks about this, and same with my book I love called Die with Zero. If you get so much benefit out of doing something that it enhances your life so much, it's probably worth doing. I just don't think alcohol is probably that thing for most people. You've just never tried living without it and seeing what it's like to go to a concert, a party, a beach, a Friday night, a Saturday night. I mean, again, Jay, you and I could talk about that forever, but I don't think your life is any less fun or thrilling or quality of life or anything since you've, quit alcohol.
No, I mean, quite frankly, I'm actually just more aware and present of what's actually going on, and I can enjoy it a lot more than I typically would numb or inebriated.
Yeah.
Last topic. Old Anne versus new Anne on money.
On money. Again, I didn't grow up. So I'm from North Dakota, for those of you who may not know me or ever heard of me, which is probably a lot of you. But I grew up in North Dakota, and I grew up with a mom who's a teacher and a dad who, didn't really like to work. He sold insurance and never really made a lot of money. We were definitely lower middle class. My family had to save 2 to 3 years so we could go on, one vacation every 3 years or so. We weren't poor. We had food on the table, but, I was sort of taught what a lot of people are taught about money, which is you put enough money away for a rainy day. You live a, modest life, and you sort of have enough to get by. I never really adopted that lifestyle. I always thought, I want to be a little more comfortable than that. And and so thought I was capable of earning more and smart enough to earn more. And that's been gradual, but now I think really big about money. I love the game of money. And anybody who says, I hate when people villainize money and demonize money. Only people who do that are people who don't know how to make it, as far as I'm concerned. And I love the quote of people who say, listen, I've been happy and poor and happy and rich, and I'll take happy and rich every single time. So I don't limit myself about how much money I can make, how much money I can produce as an entrepreneur. Money is a trophy for me. It means I'm winning the game. It means I'm doing a great job. And I'm continuing to educate myself on how to turn my dollar into 10, how to turn that 10 into 1,000, and so forth and so on. So I don't have any limits for myself on money and what I'm capable of, whether that's, billions of dollars down the road. I'm not going to sit here and say like, I can't believe how that happened. If that's something that I want to do, I know I'm very capable of doing that.
Love that. Love that. So in the spirit of living better, there's typically somebody has a pivotal moment in their life where they want to make changes and they just make the conscious decision that I want to live better. Is there a moment in time for you in your life that, something happened that had that effect on you?
I think I probably have to go back to like throwing up my food. I know a lot of women have their own eating disorders, even if it wasn't as severe as being bulimic or anorexic. But the thought of food, when to eat, what not to eat, when I can eat, when I can throw things up, the amount of hours and years that took up of my life, I would wake up
How
most
long
days.
how long did you actually, you and I know each other so well, and we've actually never really dug into that part of your life. How long did that go on for?
From 16 to like 27 with, bouts of more severe than other, but it was really bad between, 24 and 26, because I was, completely lost, and I wrapped up my whole identity in how I looked, and how I was going to be accepted into the world based off of how I looked. And then once you start doing it, your whole identity gets wrapped up in that you're the girl who's never going to be satisfied with her body. All my time and energy and thoughts were dedicated to it. So if I didn't have this thing I was trying to work on or fix, like what was I going to do with all my energy? That's literally how sick it was. And I know a lot of people out there have gone through that as well. You don't know who you are without this, addiction running your life. And so the major switch for me, talk about living a better life, was really the form of giving and helping others, if I'm being honest. When I started Back on My Feet when I was 27, that's the nonprofit that uses running to help the homeless create self-sufficiency within their lives. And I had been looking, Jay, for fulfillment and purpose over the last couple years, was really isolated. And so when I discovered sort of this newfound purpose and meaning, I finally stopped caring enough about what felt for me my superficial bullshit, because I knew I couldn't be sick and continue to live this way and help in the way that I felt like I could help these individuals that I had met living in this homeless shelter. So it was this bigger purpose and calling that frankly, forced me to make some changes with my health, knowing like I can't help people if I'm sick.
So after starting Back on My Feet, that's when you started to actually
the issues,
stop
did you
doing
go
that,
into
or?
therapy? Did you go to, I'm like, I didn't. It's like, I started caring enough again about other people that my time and energy and identity was starting to shift into, no, I'm the girl who helps people. I'm not the girl who throws up their food. And I like that better. I like the sound of that better. And I feel like it would, again, create much more fulfillment in my life than putting my head over the toilet.
So that's a good segue into your entrepreneurial journey. So walk us through Back on My Feet to Solidcore and then all the new things that are on your plate. So Back on My Feet, you started to give us the story on that. Tell us about how you evolved Back on My Feet and then how you started Solidcore.
Yeah, I'm going to try to give you the short story, even shorter.
Version.
Yeah.
Yes.
So yeah, I started this nonprofit simply by starting a running club when I was, 26, about to turn 27. again, so starved for fulfillment. And then when I saw these guys, when I was running by them, my father is an addict. So I think there was some universal spiritual pull toward wanting to help and connect with them. Ended up convincing the shelter to let me start this running club. And over the first 6 weeks, I was like, there's something here. This is a pivotal, monumental, maybe even the paramount step to these guys really changing their life. They didn't have community. They didn't have an area where they could focus on being better and being rewarded for making, good decisions. They've been beaten down. I mean, can you imagine what it's like being a 45, 50-year-old male in a homeless shelter, and how many people just take the opportunity to kick you down when you end up at that stage, end up at that place in that stage of your life? There was no positive community for these group of men. So, was like, I got to take a shot on seeing if I can build this into this vision that's living in my head here. Didn't take the advice of every single person who told me I was crazy and naive for wanting to dedicate my life to helping these individuals, right? And again, first lesson is most people who've never done what you've done or even thought about doing what you're doing are going to tell you, you're nuts, this won't work, doesn't make sense, doesn't fit into anybody else's societal economical norms on how you can possibly create a life for yourself. So did that, surrounded myself with a lot of smart people, and we started executing on the vision. And, Jay, making a ton of mistakes. And I'll tell you what, being naive really does work in your favor, because you don't know the obstacles that are ahead. And when you don't know they're there, they're not going to stop you because you think you're going to, you know what I mean? Like, totally. I think the first time being an entrepreneur, you're just like, I'm going to do it. And then a challenge comes, you're like, well, I'm already in the deep end. I got to figure it out. So that's what a lot of that was for me. I'd never been a founder before. I'd never been a CEO before. I, never led people before. I'd never managed anybody before. I had a lot of lessons to learn, and I made a lot of mistakes, but I saw my talents and capabilities during that time, what I was good at and what I wasn't so good at. And I understood how to scale. I understood how to put systems, processes, make an experiential brand, have scale. And I'm like, I don't know if a lot of people are as good at this if I am. So when it was time to move on from back on my feet, didn't think that would have happened when I first started it. I knew I wanted to try my hand in the for-profit space, and I wanted to do something that I felt I could win at. So I was super passionate about fitness. And again, I knew that I could scale things. So when I discovered Pilates, which again, as someone who worked out all the time, I didn't know Pilates was such an effective workout until I did it. And I was like, that's insane. So I felt there wasn't a premium brand in that space. And I was like, my skill sets and talents, heed really well toward building a brand, a company that does this. So that was my next venture. I had saved, I was fortunate enough to be paid to go and speak at this point. And I just was putting away every extra dime I had beyond my rent and living expenses. And at that point, over 6 years, had managed to save $175,000 from zero, mind you. I didn't have a dime when starting back on my feet. And so when it was time to, make Solidcore happen, I just put all my chips in, and opened my first studio. Same thing. Like I didn't know anything about building out a space, signing a commercial lease. And for all the entrepreneurs who want to be entrepreneurs out there, I always tell folks, you're not going to know everything. And there's not one entrepreneur you will find out there that had it all figured out when they started. You have to know enough, and you need to figure out what talents, skill sets, and assets do you need to possess that's going to best serve that business. And if you can answer enough of those that you think will make that business successful, that's enough for me to take the leap. I'm not detail oriented. I'm not the best at operations, being in the weeds and minutia and whatever, not my skill set. But I figured at some point I'd be able to hire somebody, to support that side of the business. But like I said, I knew I had enough talent on my end to at least get the thing going, up and running, and, get some legs behind the brand.
You sure did. So that's where, one thing I want to ask you, how important do you think it is that entrepreneurs have skin in the game?
I would never invest in anybody or anybody's business who does not have And I'm not talking about a little skin. I'm talking about a lot. It needs
Yeah.
to be uncomfortable that you have no other option. And that's what's going to drive you. So it's important to, one, have skin in the game, and two, Jay, make sure you pick something that you're obsessed about. Once I found this workout, I was like, I want as many people to feel as good as I do by doing this workout. It's effective. Right. I was seeing results. There wasn't jumping and pounding. I'm like, there's something really here and nobody knows about it. So I was, as enthusiastic as I possibly could be about introducing people, getting them into Solidcore, because I knew it was going to make their life better.
Yeah. I mean, and from the very beginning, you and I met, it's got to be 7 years now.
Oh, yeah.
Probably 8. And you were always so clear on your vision. That was one thing for me. Like the minute that I met you, you told me exactly what your plan was, exactly what you wanted to do. And I thought it was very unique also that along the way, you had no problem telling people that you were growing this business to a certain point to exit.
Right. Yeah.
People don't typically do that. That was always very unique.
Yeah, I just was talking to, a girl, giving her some advice around her own business. And I'm like, listen, there's nothing wrong with having a small business and running that one studio or 2 studios. I'm never going to criticize somebody. If that's what you want, I'm going to give you really different advice. But there's a much different advice you need to hear if you want to build a company. And a lot of founders get in their own way when if they want to build to exit. That means you need to put a team in place. You need to trust. You need to not be in the meetings. You need to, you're going to have to allow a few mistakes to happen. Now, listen, the bigger the company gets, the more talent you pay for. I always say this line, and it's a sports analogy, Jay. But like when you're the CEO of a company, right? So when I talk about Brian Myers a lot, Brian knew when he was COO, when I was giving him the compensation package he was getting, and then CEO, you got to have a really good batting average. People say like, oh, I'm going to make mistakes too. And I'm like, listen, wait a minute. A marketing coordinator gets to make a whole lot more mistakes than the CEO, because the CEO level of decision-making is so much higher, and those decisions can have massive upside or really adverse impacts for the business. And you have to bring on that talent. You've got to set expectations. And it's like, yeah, you got to step up to the plate and you got to hit some triples and home runs with your decision-making, with your ideas. And so many people think that they want to grow in their roles. They want to be CEOs. And guys, that's what it is sitting at the table. There's no one telling you what to do and how to execute. You have to come up with the ideas. You need to say, how can we grow this business from here to here? And people are looking, at you and hiring the team on how to do it. The answer doesn't exist yet. You have to find it. So, now I feel like I'm rambling and totally forgot your question.
No, you're sharing such amazing, things with the folks listening here. But I'll ask you, again, I've worked with several founders of very big, well-known brands, and Solidcore being the best story, one of the best stories in my career, and definitely the best story where I was along for the ride from a very early stage of the company all the way through to the exit of the company and hitting that hundreds. What's that?
And you're still involved. Post me.
Still involved, yeah. But we literally executed your goal, and we did it with COVID happening, right? So, but what would you say? Like, it's even though you had this clear mission, it's still not. It's very rare that somebody does what you did. Like, it's very rare that they accomplish that. So, what do you think were the unique things that allowed you to actually execute that vision, come hell or high water, and actually, and not fall short of the 100 locations that you said, I'm going to hit 100 and I'm going to exit?
Yeah. I mean, listen,
what was the secret sauce there?
I mean, I think it's a few things, right? It's like whenever I ask you, oh my God, what's the weight loss secret? It's never one thing. It's never, if it was one thing, people would say one thing and they would go do that one thing. But the
magic pill.
Right. It's exactly. It's never works that way. First things first, I wanted it. I wanted it more than anybody else wanted it. And I still remember when COVID happened and I was like, shutting down every single studio with no idea when they were going to open again. I'm like, whatever this is not taking this from me. I have worked far too long. This means far too much to me, my employees, and the people who use Solidcore as church. It is where they go to service. And like, I don't know as much as anybody else does about the pandemic right now, but this is not the end of this company. There's no way. And I'm a little bit of a wartime CEO. So when things get tough, and if things get tough and business was already tough, or you never were kind of in it and you were looking for reasons to be out, like COVID was it. You had an easy out, right? Like, oh, landlords, it's too hard, whatever. We came up with such a game plan during COVID. And Jay, the biggest thing when I kept on, my 12 people cut their salaries in half, cut my salary completely, laid off the other 99% of employees. We knew the biggest thing we had to do was get the landlords on our side. Yeah. We had, at that point, 77 leases or 77 studios open, plus, 12 to 15 leases signed. And we had to get these people to root for us and let them know we are going to be here when this is over, but we won't be if we don't get your help. So me and my legal counsel, Dimple, I'm a decent negotiator, but I'm like, we got to get better. We started reading negotiation books. We were like, what's important to the landlords here? They don't really need, our cash for such a small footprint. What do they need? Yelling and screaming at them was not going to do it. We really relationship build. And I mean, there may be one or two, but of those 77 studios, we didn't have to pay rent when we were closed. And that is not the story of a lot of other places, because either they didn't fight hard enough, they didn't do the relationship building, but we couldn't afford 77 lease payments due without any revenue coming in.
Yeah, I mean, it was flawless execution and you didn't hesitate. That's another thing. You acted with conviction right away, and you knew that if you didn't, it would have been a different story. And it's really amazing because there's very few fitness concepts that that are healthier today than they were pre-COVID.
Yeah.
And Solidcore is definitely one of them.
Yeah. And Jay, I'll say another thing again about people who are sitting in the founders, position. And we talked about it just for a second before, but you got to check your ego at the door. You need to continue. I always tell people when they're growing a business, and sometimes I say 6 months, sometimes people need to hear 3 months. Every 3 months, you need to look at and say, how am I serving the business? And let's just use a fitness studio since we're talking about that. If the 3 months in versus 3, 6, 9, 12, I was still coaching 20 classes a week. And I told myself a story that, oh my God, well, I have to coach because no one will come if I'm not coaching in the studios. If I'm spending 20 hours, which in essence is 30 plus coaching, that takes away time for me doing other things. And so I'm like, okay, well, what's Anne's best ability to impact the business? I need to grow it. I need to get more locations open. I can hire great trainers, great coaches that can execute this workout, connect with the clients, build community. I don't need that on my resume. Other people cannot just do that well. They can probably do it better than I could. So it was like, okay, I got to decrease my class load, and I got to decrease I don't need to do the schedule anymore, right? Like that doesn't need Anne Mahlum's talent. Someone else can handle the class schedule, the payroll, which was time consuming, the customer service questions. It was like, administrative, very easy task, doesn't take vision to do these things. I need to focus on brand equity, getting locations open, speed to market, so that when people are like, there's 6 Solidcores around. What am I missing out on? I see these things everywhere. It must be an excellent workout. And I needed to get speed to market. And I knew that I had the ability to negotiate well with the landlords, get the contracts with the GCs, with the general contractors to build out the spaces. And I need to be spending my time on decisions that are hundreds of thousands of dollars, or at least tens in the beginning. And then as it continued to elevate, I only got involved in conversations that I could have $1 million+ impact. Anything else the team can't handle, I got the wrong team in place, or I'm not empowering them.
And you apply that to every area of life, right? It's really like, what's the time value of money here? Right. And also I think it's really important because you're the only person I think that I've ever worked with that walks into a space and says, what is the ROI of every square inch of this space? Right. And I think one of the biggest failures in the fitness industry is a tremendous waste of space, right? Mm-hmm. And overpaying rent and build out and all that fun stuff. But I don't want to get too stuck on Solidcore. We got a lot to cover. You have a masterclass, you have a book coming out, and you also have Ambition. Which one do you want to start with?
Well, let's go briefly to, Ambition.
Okay.
I guess it's another, I'll just give a brief overview. It's another wellness and fitness company, in New York, with the idea that, every boutique fitness does one thing really well. And saw the need that, people I think are going to want 2 to 3, maybe even 4 modalities, options underneath one roof that understands how to execute programming, execute community in a beautiful space. So we're getting ready to open our 3rd location. This will probably air by the time it's open, in Flatiron. So we have one in Brooklyn Heights, and then one in Chelsea, and one in Flatiron. We've got amazing strength and conditioning classes. Again, progressive overload. Like, I'm talking about the best strength programming that I've ever seen. Jo Gomez is our head of product and talent, unbelievable. She understands exercise and the body better than anybody I've ever met. And then we have a hot athletic flow, which is all about getting your muscles to failure, lighter weights, more reps in the heat, great for cardio endurance, great for your skin. And again, just a really cool vibe in there. And then we have a recovery class, which is focused on flexibility and mobility. So definitely worth checking out. These are 3 really amazing formats that are going to, increase and enhance your overall wellness and fitness.
Love it. And there's definitely a void in the marketplace for that. What would you say to folks that believe that going to in-person workouts are just no longer a thing?
I mean, I just sold my business a few months ago. So I would say, listen, everybody wants everybody to choose a side. And I'm like, there's always enough people out there. Some people hate working out in person. We're at home. Great. There's enough to cater to, again, go back to COVID. So many people changed their whole business model for a point in time. And we're like, we got to do this because this is the way of the world. And we were like, nah, like, this is not going to be this way forever. We are not
going to. That didn't really pan out so well for the ones that focus solely on that.
Yeah, of course not. And so we were just like, no, we are staying the course, doubling down. People want community. They want to be in person, accountability. We just never faltered from that belief system. And, February 2021 raised $50 million to back that bet and, started playing offense while most companies were continuing to play defense. We always knew we had an incredible product. And if we could get more studios open, people wanting to come back to in fitness, we actually thought we'd have a bigger pool of people. And Jay, I think I shared this stat with you and whatever, but it was like, now I'm blanking on the stat, but millions of people, frankly, started working out in COVID and got introduced to a workout regimen virtually that was starting to feed once people got comfortable at home, then they wanted to go in person. So they were starting to feed the in-person companies and businesses out there. And Solidcore is doing way better than it was before COVID. So I can tell you that, that's a myth that is now debunked.
Oh yeah, no, I know it, and I think I could never work out at home.
Right.
It's painful. And in addition to that, it's just community and socialization is so much more fun when you're with other people and getting your butt kicked and all that fun stuff. Let's talk about your book, because I don't know enough about your book. So
yeah, I know it's
tell.
Well, we've been going back and forth. We've been doing drafts and we've really landed in this great place. The book's called Animal Instincts, hence my name. But every chapter is, we talk about animal instincts as it relates to life, being successful in life and business. And we go through everything that I've sort of ever learned. I'm real excited about it, hope to have it done by, early December before the holidays. But, I think it's full of really great stuff, Jay, that people don't talk about. It's like, you can get this standard advice, like hire great people. It's like, okay, what does that actually mean? I know how to deal with constant people trying to tear me down. Again, I understand how to scale businesses, start businesses, cash flow, taking big risks, not listening to other folks. There's just a lot in there that my journey, the things that I've done really well, the mistakes that I've made, I think can really help people take action on the things, especially around business, that they keep talking about, but they don't know how to get going, or they have a studio, or they have one store, one location. They don't know how to get it to 20. So I'm excited to share, all of that.
I can't wait. That's I'm so excited to read that. But is it like Is it very Solidcore driven, or is it
No,
it's all over the
it's
place? Just
yeah. Yeah, I
love
mean,
it.
I've been a founder, now three times, and have experience building a nonprofit for 6.5 years as a young person who'd never, again, as I mentioned, never led, never managed, never been a CEO. All of the things I learned. I mean, Jay, I had this amazing board for back on my feet. It got so much attention from the media, so I was fortunate to get C-level people to want to sit on my board. I call a board meeting. I don't let anybody talk for the first hour. I mean, and people are like, Anne, why are we here? And I was so concerned and so insecure of like, you guys are going to figure out I'm not smart enough to do this. So I just need to convince you at this table and talk the whole time. And, I had a really good mentor who was like, Anne, if you want people to be engaged, you need to let them give you their opinions and ideas and ask for help. So anyway, it's from that to yes, starting a for-profit business, scaling it, building out the team, succession planning, and exiting, and the emotions that come along with that, so you can be in charge and have an amazing, frankly, exit if that's what you want to be doing.
I love
Again,
it.
to dealing with the resilience, how you build tough skin, how you handle it when things are going to get really tough, to, of course, moving on to, the third entrepreneurial effort I have. And there'll also be some things about money in there. So yeah,
Awesome.
I think it's going to be a really well-rounded book that's going to, be relatable, inspirational, and educational for a lot of people.
I love it. So, and tell us about the masterclass, because I think that could be really, really helpful for a lot of people too.
Yeah, I've been starting to do some masterclass stuff. I did one on starting a business. I'm going to do one on how to scale a business. Again, giving people real, tangible example stuff that's not just living up in the meta on how you do these things, and giving time, time for folks to ask some
Tactical
questions.
advice
Yeah,
that
it's
people
like,
could take and execute on.
yeah,
Love that.
definitely.
All right. We're going to end with 5 questions. You ready for me?
Oh my gosh, I didn't get. So everybody knows this. I have no idea what Jay's going to ask me, but
That's
yes.
true. And we like it that way. What does your morning routine look like?
Listen, my morning routine is pretty consistent, but I don't freak out if I miss it. I wake up, it's athletic greens most of the time, and then it's
I
right to.
I haven't had athletic greens yet. And it's like everywhere and it's been around for a while.
I know
Do I
it's good.
need it?
It's good. Brett makes my
Yeah.
morning great. It's like athletic greens. He puts some apple cider vinegar in there, lemon juice, turmeric, cinnamon, and ginger. And he's religious about it. Like, he doesn't miss a day. So it's that, some water, and then off to the gym, first thing in the morning, 5-6 days a week, come back, and then, get right to work for the most part. That's the routine.
Part 2, is there anything in that routine that if you travel a ton, different time zones, all that fun stuff, is there anything that's part of the morning routine that if you miss it, you're just a little off for the rest of the day?
Yeah, I don't eat in the morning either. I know you don't
Yeah.
either. Usually it's,
Yeah.
I wait till 11 o'clock depending on the time zone to eat. So like, that's really important. And I think if eating in the morning would make me feel off. So like, that's one thing that's always, really, really consistent.
I
But
feel that.
yeah, I mean, everybody's like, oh my God, you need to wake up at 5 a.m. I'm like, I wake up at 6 a.m. and I've always been that way. And in the winter, I probably wake up at 6:30. I get, I prioritize sleep. So everybody has to figure out what works best for you. If you beat yourself up because you miss a morning routine or you miss X, then don't miss it. Like,
Yeah.
I've got years of experience, Jay, to know if I miss a morning of working out because I can tell my body needs recovery or something came up. Like, I'm not like, oh my God, I'm off the wagon, I'm never going to work out again. I
Yep.
know I'm right back on it tomorrow. So like, I have enough reps underneath my belt to not freak out if I'm like not super diligent about it.
Yeah, I think that's amazing, and most people should strive for that, where it's like nothing should really rattle you if you miss it that
Right.
morning. Like, that's stupid. But I fall into the trap. Who are the 3 most influential people in your life?
Oh my gosh, dude, that's a really hard one for me to answer right now. And I'm
It
gonna say,
is, right? You could wing it. You could wing it. Doesn't have to. We're not gonna.
okay, the three most influential people in my life right now. I mean, obviously I'll have to say Brett because we live together and he's my partner, right? So like, what he
And he's
does,
an awesome human.
he's an awesome human. But like, if that wasn't the case, that there'd be something wrong with that because we spend so much time together. So if I'm one of those people, if I don't admire my partner, I'm not inspired by my partner, learning from my partner, you're probably not going to be my partner. So I'll definitely, say Brett. I'm going to also say my therapist right now. Like, she's encouraging and inspiring to me to be able to heal some of the continued childhood trauma that we all think that we're healed from, but still is popping up in areas of my life. So I'm gonna say her.
That's a tough question. I know it is. You can limit it to 2 if you want.
Okay, we're gonna just go with 2 so you don't
Let's
force
stick
me.
with 2. What's your favorite childhood memory? I have one of yours that sticks in my mind, but you go ahead.
One of my favorite childhood memories.
I do. Well, it's not necessarily your favorite childhood memory, but it's one of my favorite childhood memories of yours because it speaks volumes, and I actually use it with my kids. But go ahead, and then I'll.
Oh, I know what you're talking about,
Yeah.
and it's the formative one where my dad took us. Yeah. So again, my dad took us to a hotel in North Dakota in February. We were complaining about how bored we were, and he told us to go get our swimsuits, and we pulled up at a hotel, which was very strange. Like, we're like, oh my God, are we getting a hotel room? Which we had never done on a weekday before when the house is right there and we live in Bismarck. And he's like, no, but walk in like you own the place and ask where the pool is. And so that's what we did. And we ended up swimming all day. And like that kind of don't F with me confidence and walking like you own the place. It's huge and you should try it. Like anywhere you go, people don't ask questions. If you are, head up, shoulders back and walking with some sort of swagger.
I mean, that had to like shape a lot of who you are in because, and I feel like it's such a simple thing, but it really is such a profound concept.
And we all done it. We've all looked at people, Jay, and we're like, that person has something that about them, that je ne sais quoi, something, and it's how they carry themselves. And you can also do the opposite. When somebody's not confident, not secure, just by their body language.
It's funny. I just have to add this. We were in the city and Jax and I, since obviously Jax, well, we go to Chipotle. It's just him and I, and he wants green Tabasco sauce, but the bottle's like really empty. And I said, just go ask the guy at the register for a new bottle. He'll give you one. He walks up totally like intimidated, asks the guy like in a mumble. The guy gives him the bathroom code because he can't communicate properly. He comes back. He's like, Dad, he thought that I was asking for the bathroom code. I'm like, Jax, let me show you something. And I walk up to the guy and I ask him very clearly, do you have a new bottle of green Tabasco? This one's empty. He goes and gets the bottle, hands it to me. I walk over to Jax. I'm like, Jax, you have to understand that if you don't ask for and go for what you want in life, you're never going to get it.
Yeah. That's a great thing. You're going to end up with the bathroom code. That's a great little thing.
How great is that? If you could be remembered for one thing, what would it be?
Empowering people to step into their damn power, and exactly that of don't be afraid. And I just love how everybody thinks that the people who make it, just somehow like we're built different. I'm like, no, they're not. No one likes to fail. No one likes to hear rejection, but you just like anything else, it hurts less the more you do it. It doesn't impact you as much. So like trying to teach as many people as possible to go ask for the green Tabasco sauce and stop asking permission and beg for forgiveness. Like you don't have to apologize for taking up space, for trying and for playing. And, there's going to be plenty of people out there who, when you fail, want to point out all the things you did wrong, but chances are that person never tried anything in their life and they feel better about themselves watching other people fall down. And like, you don't want to be surrounded with that person anyway. That person's life is not someone you envy. So why do you give a shit about what they say or think?
People shouting from the bleachers.
Yeah.
Last question. What do people misunderstand about you the most?
Oh, I think people think I'm a bitch. I think people think that it's just like, oh my God, Anne is so, and I'm like, yeah, listen, you think you're going to get someplace, in business what's filled with men, private equities, filled with men, contractors, construction, I have to be direct and I have to be clear. But when a woman is direct and clear, it is easily misconstrued that like she's mean and she doesn't work to accommodate everybody or democracy. And I always say, your expectations of who you want women to be as leaders is not something I ever committed to. I can't win at this game unless I show up with confidence, and I show up and I got to piss somebody off because I can't please everybody all the time. And so I think that's the biggest thing of just like, people associate being clear with being a bitch, when being clear is kind, being direct is kind. And yeah, I think people can be intimidated by me when really I'm like fun, playful, and silly, but I'm also super smart, and I'm not going to dumb myself down to, make somebody else feel better. Just not my style.
Well said. And it's funny. That's a good one. But if you were not, stern and shrewd, you would not have achieved a fraction of what you've achieved. And it's been a blessing to me to be involved and behind the curtain for a lot of, discussions with folks that, don't necessarily know what they're dealing with, but figure it out sooner or later.
Yeah. I appreciate that.
Of course. So what would be just one simple tip for our listeners about if they're maybe earlier on in their journey about choosing to live better? What are a few things that maybe you would tell them to think about?
This is not going to be brand new information for folks. And there's a reason why everybody always says it. And I always laugh when like people are spending so much money on like skincare, right? But like, you're not drinking water, like you're not getting sleep. Like you can't show up as your optimized self if you're not if you're putting shitty food in your body, meaning processed food, right? That's for me the ultimate culprit. Processed food, you're not drinking enough water, you're not sleeping well, not exercising. Like if you can't make those things a priority, but you want a better life, like I don't want to talk to you. Like it's not even it's never going to happen. You're never going to fix all your problems doing anything else if you're refusing to do, in my mind, those 4 things. You want to go cold plunge, but you don't want to eat vegetables. You want to go a sauna, but you won't work. It's just like, I don't know how to help you. Like start here or don't start at all, I guess.
Yeah, I love that. I think you sum it up that, it's really pretty simple, right? It's like the basics and, there's other things that are way more elaborate and maybe cost more money and all that stuff, but yeah, you can get healthy with real basic stuff.
Totally, Jay. And that's the foundation. I mean, again, there's so many metaphors. You can't build, once you got those things dialed in, yeah, then let's talk about some of the additional things you can do to optimize all of that stuff, whether it's, some, supplements. How can you optimize your nutrition, even more? What, the sauna, the cold plunge. Okay, now let's add those things in, into your life. Now let's talk about your money. Now let's talk about mindset. But like your health is your number one thing. And you have to get to a point where it's second nature. It's not willpower. You can't wait to go to the gym. You're excited about going to bed at 9 o'clock at night because you are your best, optimal, most cheery self when you show up, with a well-rested mindset. And I guess I'll say one last thing, because I had an interview with somebody and I asked him, what does success mean to you? And it's an answer that after selling my business, you guys, and made a ton of money, it's like peace of mind. You can have somebody who's very wealthy, very fit, whatever. If they're constantly running in their head and anxious and stressed and frustrated, and these things, that everybody sort of chases, they already have. Peace of mind is something everybody, regardless of how much you have, what you look like, needs to work on. What are you going to let upset you? When someone cuts you off in the street, does it ruin your whole day? Like how do you handle situations? How do you show up with your partner, for yourself? Do you fall asleep at night? Are you crazy? And this guy said to me, Jay, he's a coach for billionaires. And he goes, Anne, every single one of my clients shows up to our meetings in a bad mood, bitching about their maid, bitching about their, chauffeur, something. And it's just like, what a miserable existence you lead. You have all of the money in the world, and you search and seek out these minor frustrations that continue to allow your peace of mind and the way you show up in the world be completely disrupted. And like, I will never be that person.
Yeah, I think that's everybody's goal should be peace of mind and happiness and fulfillment.
Yeah. Yeah.
Excellent. So where can everybody find you, find more information, find your podcast, by the way? I didn't mention How To with Anne Mahlum.
Yeah, well, you can find me in Florida these days, but online, Instagram is probably the best. I'm the most active. there's too many social media channels to keep up with. So that's where, if you want to get a hold of me, that's a good one. If you're looking to work with me, my website has the ways in which to do that, which is just annemahlum.com. And yes, the podcast.
Amazing. Well, thank you for your time, friend. This
Yeah,
was
Jay,
great.
nice to talk to you, dude. Good to see you, and looking forward to seeing you.
Good to talk to you. Say hello to Brett, and we'll
Same.
see
Say hi to
you
Danielle.
soon.
Okay, sounds good. All right, bye.
Bye.